Hello, hello, hello. This is Chef Ranveer Brar and welcome to this amazing space where we talk about India, its culture, its food and how they are beautifully interconnected. Welcome to India in 21 Recipes. You know, the dish that we're going to cook today is both special and sacred. Special because no breakfast south of Mangalore or around Mangalore or around Udupi ever starts without this dish. And it's sacred because it comes from a beautiful sacred land of Udupi, the home to some amazing food and of course Sri Krishna Mat. You know, there's something comforting about breakfast food, and for me, if there's a dish that denotes that ultimate comfort, it's the Udupi Uppittu. Alright, so ghee and uppittu. Uppittu in this case is flour or rava, right? So this technically is semolina, most classically available in India, outside of India, as Bombay Rava or wheat semolina. There's also a rice version available. Please be extra careful when you're asking for rava, because if you get the rice version, it takes much longer to cook and definitely does not taste the same. The idea here is to toast the rava, the semolina, on a slow flame, right? The reason you do that is because you do not want the browning to occur, because you don't want to change the flavor. All you want to do is one, get it richer so it feels creamier later because the addition of clarified butter or ghee. And you want to sometimes take off that off smell that comes inside semolina because it's been stored for long. This is the texture that you're looking for. You have that slight puffiness of the grain, but the color hasn't changed. It's puffy and it's opened up. It's breathing a little more. You know, it's a good time to show you a little before and after. This is before and this is after. And now let me introduce you to the Victorinox Rex peeler. You know, this is a design since 1947. And the best part is it just fits so well in your fingers. You see that? Ergonomics is the science of ease, comfort and fit. So classically, while in an upma you'd always have at least some onions, right? In an uppittu you'd never have onions. Why? Because temple food, no onions, no garlic. And nothing that smells freshness is ever possible without a little bit of green chilli, not in India. You know, we often talk about bulk cooking, and we often talk about cooking for hundreds or cooking for thousands. If you go to Udupi Mat at peak times, they're cooking for hundreds of thousands. Amazing food, and all of it without onion garlic. That's the power of the Indian temple food. The idea of picking up this recipe for you was also to discuss this whole idea, the whole concept of temple food, which is very unique to India. I mean, wherever you're watching this video from, if you ever come to India or if you are in India and you haven't had langar or temple prasadam, especially prasadam from temples down south that have held on to those recipes for thousands of years, you've definitely missed an essential slice of India. Come back one more time and taste them. Clarified butter, you could also use oil, you could also use coconut oil. In case you want to use extra virgin cold pressed coconut oil, please make sure you do not heat it as much as you would heat the regular oil, because the more cold pressed, the more tasty impurities and the higher chances of it just not tasting as well when you heat it too much. Whether it's olive oil, any unrefined cold pressed oil shouldn't be treated to higher temperatures. All right, let's cut our tomatoes with our tomato knife. Tomatoes or tomatoes, whatever you'd like to call them, do not dice them too fine, right? Just this thick is good enough. I personally prefer tomatoes in my uppittu. because the beauty of Uppittu is the sweet, sour creaminess, right? And the sourness comes from a tinge of lemon and a little bit of tomato. If you were to cook it in a temple, you would not add tomatoes, because tomatoes are way younger than temples. Temples probably on an average 2000 years old, tomatoes 150 years old, maybe 200 years old in India. Mustard seeds, lots of curry leaves, chana dal, urad dal. So lentils are both for nourishment and for texture and for nuttiness. Whenever you are adding lentils to a tempering like we are right now, do make sure that the lentils get to a nice nutty golden brown color, because the nuttiness and the crunch that they will give to the dish is what they really are in it for. Beautiful. Add a tad bit of salt, a little bit of water. So you could add anywhere between 3.5 to 4 times the liquid to the semolina that you have roasted. Yeah, comfortably go with 3. You can go up to 4 if you like it nice and creamy and comforting. Keep some water handy, because you don't want the lentils to burn. So don't start till you have water at hand. The trick is to season the broth well. So if you season the broth well, your dish will be seasoned well, because the flavor of the broth is just going to get absorbed into the semolina, right? So if you season the broth well, if you flavor it well, then you have a perfect Uppittu. Something very typical to the Uppittu is the slight sweet sourness, and that's why sugar is always added to an Uppittu. We add the sugar, we add the tomatoes at the last minute. Tomatoes don't need to cook, you just need to give that tartness. Looks like a pot full of color, doesn't it? I would normally prefer adding 3 parts water and 1 part milk. You could also add 1 part buttermilk. The idea of adding milk or buttermilk to the Uppittu is to make it richer, lactic, and more comforting. So 3 parts water, 1 part milk. You see the difference in texture? There's a difference in aroma, I can definitely sense it here. Cover, leave it on a slow flame for 3 minutes tops, and we're ready to eat. Easy, wasn't it? Easy and a very old temple recipe. Well, while we're at it, let's take 30 seconds and talk about peelers. Vegetable peelers, or potato peelers as I like to call them. The most important thing in a peeler is its blade, right? What you need to know is whether a blade works one side or both sides. In case a blade works both sides, like here, that means it's comfortable for a left-hander or a right-handed person to use. And if you've ever wondered what this knob or this loop or this tip meant in a peeler, well, it's for coring out the eyes of potatoes. So you take a potato and you use this to take out the eye of the potato while you're peeling it, or you use this tip to take out the eye of the potato, or this loop. Good piece of information. Always saw it, never knew what to use it for, right? Nice, beautiful. So the trick is to give time. If you don't give time to the rava, then there's no point, because it needs to hydrate and hydrate well. And hydration is a function of both temperature and time. You know what will be a superb addition to this? Parmesan. a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano at the end, and you reminded yourself of a soft gnocchi romana. The world is indeed very small, and especially if you see it with the lens of food, there's always a connection to be made. This is how you typically would get an Uppittu in Mangalore or Udupi. You just get a bowl full, inverted on your plate, and you deal with it and enjoy your morning. Doesn't this like look comfort? Now another bit which I was speaking about at first and I did not touch, which is very interesting, is a lot of old places they put a little bit of sugar on top of the Uppittu, but granulated sugar at the last minute for the crunch, and they put this puffed rice for texture, so you don't get bored and it doesn't become all too creamy all the time for you. That's why I said there's a nice textural play in this very comforting dish. This was that. Imagine using granulated sugar for texture. If you want to understand the ultimate definition of comfort food, you have to try the recipe out. And if you want to understand what all Indian food can define in terms of emotions, tastes and flavors, you got to come back for more, because I'm going to be right here with India in 21 recipes. I'll see you around.